Hello, everybody. So, it's a time, right? It's a definitely an interesting time in our world, and boy, am I grateful. And it has been probably, well, it has been, I would say, the most intense month of my life. Some stuff going on with my child. That I never thought I would have to deal with, and just having to make some hard choices as a parent that kind of came to a head this week, and things changed, and it's been pretty miraculous, actually. And I wanted to just, there's so much going on in the world, and it's such an intense time for so many people. And one of the hi Jane, one of the things that has been really showing up is I wasn't exposed to this as much as I have been lately. There's this real mental health crisis. Well, there's a mental health crisis in the entire world, I would say, with everything that's all the controls and all of the concern and whatever sort of side of the fence you're on with COVID and vaccines and passports, all that stuff. Whatever side you're on is and hopefully we just get to a point where there aren't sides. That's really what I'm asking for. But is that it's just, there's a lot of challenges going on. Obviously, we all know this, right? And I recently came right up against how this is showing up for kids and teenagers and adolescents, and the Children's Hospital of Denver, where I live. Well, I live in Boulder, but in Colorado. Basically declared a state of emergency, a mental health state of emergency for children in Colorado, and my child was definitely part of that, and we looked for therapists for him, and basically they're all booked, they're all full, they don't have wait lists. The mental health professionals right now are absolutely totally tapped out, and it's very difficult to even find a therapist or somebody who's available to help you if you're looking for that. And so that was a real eye-opening thing. I knew there was a crisis, but I didn't realize until, because the tools that I use, the tools of access consciousness, I'm steeped in this huge conversation of change, really, like change on an energetic level that creates change on every level that shows up in your life. And we go with access consciousness, we go to the energy, we change the energy, we choose something different. Really, that's how you change things, and we can talk a little bit more about that. But you choose something different and things change, and it seems way too simple to be true and to work and all of that. And what I've seen is that the tools that I use and that I have been using for the past 10 years, they work better than anything I've ever done. And I am a mental health professional. I have been for, since, I got a master's in social work in 1997. So, whatever that is, 24 years. I had a private practice and the whole 9 yards for a long time. And then I found the tools of access consciousness, and what I saw is that it was changing things way faster for me than anything I had ever done, and way faster for everybody around me, with a lot less trauma and drama, a lot less seriousness, and a lot more joy, a lot more playfulness, a lot more fun, and still, handling the heavy shit, like the deep stuff that, we have in our worlds that therapy is really good for. But as I was a therapist for 13 years, and the work that I did was it was body-centered work, which was way faster than anything else I had found at the time. It was way more effective and dynamic, which is why I did it, and I also just love bodies. And then I found access consciousness, and it was like, whoa, this is changing things at like warp speed, you know, and that's probably like a bad phrase to use now because Donald Trump, you know, but I'm going to use it. I don't really give a fuck about Donald Trump. I don't have a point of view about anybody at this point. Like, it's like, can we just get over it? But I, you know, I basically just saw this stuff and I was like, wow, this stuff works so fast to change psychological issues, trauma issues, any mental health issues, health issues, financial issues, business issues, relationship issues. I mean, all of it, everything. And so for me, it was a moment to go, well, I actually want to do, as a professional and personally, I want to do what's going to be the fastest, you know, what's going to be the fastest route to change, to create the change in my life, in the world, and in the world of the people that I was working with that, you know, I like way faster than I had seen in the past. And it also kind of matched this sense of what I thought was possible, like what I knew was possible, but I didn't know quite how to get there. And this is where, you know, honestly, the magic comes in. And, you know, a lot of people hear that word and they're like, well, that's airy-fairy, so it has to be, you know, whatever. But one of the things that I've really been blown away by over the years is the magic that actually does show up, that is available when we be ourselves. And that's a big kind of, it's a big, what do you want to call it? Like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it's a buzzword, right? Be you know, what does that even mean? What does that look like? And that's something that's actually a really amazing, deep, wide, and fruitful exploration that I've never seen anything like it either, you know, and there's a lot of conversations about that in Access Consciousness. And that's really how you change everything, is by being you. Now, what the hell is being you know? We can throw that around. We can sort of define who we are. It's like, well, I'm this, you know, I am Heather, I am a facilitator, I am a mom, I am a lover, I am a, you know, I live in Boulder, blah, blah, blah. But those are all the definitions that we have put on ourselves of who we are and who we think we are. And we use these definitions of ourselves to put ourselves in this sort of box so that we can go, we can have our choices match what we've decided is good, and stay away from what we've decided is bad, do and sort of be what we've decided is right, stay away from what we've decided is wrong, and tick the box at the end of every day of like, I did the right thing today, I did the good thing today, I was the good person today, or whatever you want to be. You know, some people actually enjoy not being the good person. And that's also an awareness that's been really enlightening to me since playing with Access Consciousness is, wow, you know, there are people out there that, you know, don't actually desire the best for other people and for the world. Actually kind of a lot of them. And it's not about being jaded or, you know, whatever, but it's just, if you're willing to acknowledge that, then you can actually know how to work with people. You can know how to function with people, because if you function the exact same with everybody in your life, that's going to actually really destroy your life. It's going to shrink what's possible for you. It's going to erode what's possible for you. And it's also going to erode and shrink what's possible for others and for the world. And this is where things get really exciting, I will say. And, you know, one of the things that went on for me is I knew, just to use this personal example, I knew that, you know, my son has just, you know, he's an amazing kid. I mean, just absolutely brilliant being. So caring and sweet and wonderful, and also has had this dark side. And a lot of anger and a lot of stuff, you know, under the surface. And he's worked with it by, you know, just kind of, you know, figuring out how to manipulate things and manipulate people to get to kind of navigate his way through a world that really didn't make sense to him. And, you know, I get it, because the world doesn't make sense to me, and probably doesn't, if you're listening to this, it probably doesn't to you either. There's nothing about the world that we, like the obvious world that we see right now, that is sensible at all. It's a shit show. And everybody knows it, which I think is actually a really great thing. Everybody knows that it's a shit show, and it's becoming clearer and clearer every day. And this is how we actually begin to change things. This is how we begin to do something different. And so I realized that, you know, for me, it was like I knew something needed to change. And one of the things that's gone on for me is that, and I didn't really realize this until recently, but motherhood has been the most ass-kicking thing in my life. I would be a completely different person if I wasn't a mom. And, you know, I'm sure all moms would say that, parents, dads, you know, would say that. It's a completely different trajectory. You know, you really step into the ring when you have kids, and in a way that you don't think about, because you're like, oh, baby, you know. But, you know, and it's, of course, you think about the future as well, but we have no idea what is in store for us, really. And I, just, you know, really, like, I've been in survival mode. I've really been in survival mode, for the past basically 17 years, since I got pregnant basically with my first son. And I didn't realize it, you know, and it's interesting because I had so many tools. I used to be a somatic trauma therapist. Like, I know about trauma, I know about abuse, I know about how to work with bodies, I know all these things. And I've done just shitloads of work in my life. And, you know, to become a trauma therapist, you have to handle your stuff, you know, and I did in a lot of ways. But there was still this kind of low grade, like survival going on, and kind of like places where I was letting myself be abused by other people, and also abusing myself. And I use the word abuse in a very different way. Abuse is, from a perspective, from what I see now as an access consciousness facilitator and in the work that I do now, abuse is when anybody invalidates your being. And it's not about it. Yes, it is about being physically abused and sexually abused and all of those things, but that's the obvious abuse. Like it's, you know, horrific when people have that happen to them. And it's obvious, like it's, you know, and even then they tell themselves the story of like, I deserved it. And, you know, and that's not really what this Facebook Live is about. But what we don't realize is that any time our being is invalidated and our knowing is invalidated by other people, and this whole world is set up to do that, anytime that occurs, it erodes our space, it erodes our like comfort with ourselves, it erodes our sense of being, and it actually, we start to doubt ourselves, we start to invalidate ourselves, and we take this on as this way of being in the world. And so this is sort of running in the background for most people, simply because the world is actually set up to do that. Like, nobody is actually asking us as children, hey, what do you know? Like, what's true for you? You know, what do you know about your body? What do you know about your life? What do you know about what's going to be the greatest choice for you? That's a really, to me, incredibly empowering way of parenting and of being with anybody and with ourselves. But you have to unlearn and relearn, because so much of what goes on in this world is absolutely not about that. That's nowhere to be found. And so many of us are wandering around going, there's something different here, and I don't really get how things work here. Like, I feel so often like, and I know a lot of people do, it's like, I'm an alien here because I don't get it. Like, I don't get how the planet works. I mean, I get how the planet works, the Earth, way more than I get how, like, the world works, you know? And because none of it makes sense. It's all based on judgment. It's based on this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad, this is what you need to do, this is who you need to be a good person. Now, who gets to determine that? And we're sort of in this global conversation right now of who does get to determine that? Like, are you a good person if you do this? Are you a bad person if you don't do that? And I'm not going to even talk about specifics, but it wipes out, like, when you have to fit into the structures of how you need to be in this world as a person, they're basically sort of arbitrarily determined by people's points of view, then you don't get to look at what's true for you. And, this is one of the greatest causes of trauma and drama and upset in our lives, and not something that's talked about. And please, if you are curious about this and you want to know more, there's a phenomenal book by Dr. Dane here. There's a million phenomenal books, but it's called Being You, Changing the World. One of my favorite books of all time. Really phenomenal, and really introduces us to a different conversation. There's so many resources that you can never even read and listen to everything. The content that the Access Consciousness facilitators put out is so robust and plentiful and dynamic and amazing. So it's really a feast if you wish to have a feast. But this particular book will really kind of summarize a lot of things and introduce you to something very different. And you may have read it and maybe you read it again. I'm like, I'm going to read it again. But with my son, it was like, I've known this, just this sense of gosh, something so different is available for my kids and something so different is available for me. And as a mom, I was like, for so many years, it was like, I just kind of need to hold my shit together to make this all happen, to handle me walking around the world being I don't get this place, and trying to create a business and money and, have my life and be able to support my kids and have a long distance relationship and be traveling all the time and choosing to travel because I love to travel and also it's part of my work. And so, there's all these different pieces, and then having these kids that, were dealing with their own stuff that nobody was really talking to them about except for me as much as I could, but I was also so full on with what else was going on in my world. And it came to this point recently for me where I went, you know what, this is not enough for me. This is not this, this is, one of the things that people who are seekers make themselves incredibly wrong for desiring more all the time. And this is one of the greatest gifts that my alarm, it's time to wake up. I've been awake for 2 hours already. That's hilarious. But the seekers of the world, we always want more. And that's something that we're made very, very wrong for. We've probably all heard as a child, can't you just be grateful for what you have? It's one of those highly invalidating statements that parents make to their children, that it's is gratitude important? Absolutely. But you could have gratitude. You can have massive gratitude for what you have and the desire for way more. And it's taken me a long time to get to where those can coexist, because in this reality, you have to make what you have wrong in order to desire more. There has to be a problem in order for you to have change. Well, what if there doesn't have to be a problem in order for you to have change? What if you can just go, I know there's more and I'm choosing it? And this is, one of the big aspects of the work that I do with people is hey, how much more could you have today? How much more could you choose today? And what if it doesn't mean you're discontent or unhappy or not grateful? What if it means you're profoundly content, profoundly happy, profoundly grateful, and you're like, wow, life is an adventure, living is an adventure. Let's find out what else. And so, that's been something that I've been playing with for a very long time. And yet there was still this kind of area, there was still this sort of box that I was basically kind of functioning inside of, because a lot of the times we're not willing to choose something different. We allow ourselves to have the choices that fit into the box that we've put ourselves in, according to how we've defined ourselves. And that eventually, even if it's a big box, my box got bigger, but I was still in a box, and am I out of a box? Well, more so than I've ever been. And there's always more, you always discover different boxes that you put yourself in, so I'm going to talk about that right now, Swati. Thank you for the question. So one of the things that I realized is I was seeing that these areas of my life that weren't changing. And one of the things that people tend to do is they try to fix. There was a brilliant quote from Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, about how, I just thought today about how he's never tried to fix anything. He just makes a different choice, totally different choice altogether. So you're not orienting toward a problem that you need to fix. You just go, what is totally different that I could choose here? And that's one of the big ways, is that you get out of the box. But I started to see how in my life, and this is where like the things that kind of won't change are such a gift. If you're using these tools, or you're, whatever you do in your life, however you play and create your life, if there's things that are just not changing, it's probably because you're not choosing something different. But also that you're in the box, and so for me, it was my business, and I have a wonderful business. I have a thriving business. I have an amazing business, and I've created something really, really cool over the years. And it was sort of like hanging in this zone, in terms of like my income and just, what I was creating and how I was creating. And it was just, I actually realized now that I've been trying to fix it. I made it a problem, which, doesn't acknowledge the brilliance of it. And I made it a problem and I tried to fix it. And that didn't work because it wasn't actually a problem that needed to be fixed. And I started asking, I started getting frustrated, and it was like, okay, so, what can I choose that's totally different? What can I be that's totally different? Like that I've never been willing to choose before, that I've never been willing to be before. What can I do that's totally different that I've never been willing to do before? And these are all questions that we use in Access Consciousness dynamically to get us to a different, you open up possibilities when you ask a question, and you function from questions, and you don't have to know the answer. You don't have to answer it. You just toss it up to the universe and go, hey, I'd really like to know, what are some choices I can make? What can I be? What can I do that's so different that I've never been willing to choose, be, and do before? And I also started asking, what can I stop being? What can I stop doing? And what can I stop choosing that's not me? That's not me. Because we set up our choices. We set up like the zone of what's allowable and acceptable in our lives based on these definitions of ourselves as the type of person you want to be in the world. And that can be good or bad, but we set these things up. And then that's the sum total of what you can be, do, and choose. And so you got to start asking for something different if you want something really different. So I started doing that and really demanding of myself, okay, time for something really different, because my life has gotten really freaking boring, and I get bored really easily, as do a lot of people. And I'd like something very, very different here. And what started to show up is this awareness of, wow, there's like the box, the awareness of the box that I didn't know I was in. And I started to venture beyond it and go, okay, well, what if and started to see where I was, and this is like, kind of a really sort of deep exploration energetically and, psychologically and emotionally and all that kind of stuff of my life, that I've been willing to do, and I'm always willing to do, and I do every single day, because that's what excites me. Like that's my life. This is what I do. These are the conversations that I have all day long in my own world, with myself, with other people. Like this is what I do, and I had tried to do it with my kids, but the thing is I was so in survival mode and so only able to choose in the box. And so I started to become aware of how much I was basically kind of abusing myself and allowing myself to just suffer a lot of relationships. And this is what we do in relationships. We just kind of suffer them, and we think we're at the effect of other people, and we think we're at the effect of their choices, what they will and won't do, what they will and won't choose, but we're not. And this is the brilliance of access consciousness and working energetically, is that you start to change things in your own world. You start to make different choices, and the people in your life either have to step up or move. And for me, it's like, the other thing I started asking is, what can I choose that would change? Like, what choices can I make that would change the world? And what can I be so that all of my choices will change the world? Like, I was like, I am living and being way too small here. I'm not having as great an impact on the world as I would like to have. And that changes now. This world needs something different. And I have tools and conversations that I have seen, and so many of us do, that we have seen change lives so dynamically. And I was just like, I'm not willing for this to stay small anymore. Like, this needs to get out there. These tools, these conversations, these invitations need to get out there. And I can only do what I can do, but I'm stepping it the F up. And so I really made a demand of myself. And this was about 2.5 months ago. I really made a demand of myself. It was actually after Being You, Changing the World class with Dane here, which is also the book that I mentioned. Is also a class. And there's one of those coming up in December, which is really, I'm excited for. But after that, I went, okay, this changes now. And my life, my choices, my reach, way too small. And this changes now. And so I started to realize that how much I had basically been just sort of suffering motherhood and the discontent of me and both of my children. And okay, stop. So just really suffering that, and not like being like, well, this is just how it is because we're all idiots, basically, myself very much included in that. But no. And I just went, no, I won't have this for me. And I won't have this to my kids to the degree that I have an influence, Now, they absolutely make their own choices in life. So, and that's something I've known from the beginning. I've never tried to control my kids because it doesn't work. If you try to control your kids, you may just want to give it up now because it doesn't work. And I never wanted to do that. I was never interested in that. I never tried to do that. I wanted to empower them to know what they know and to navigate their life and to find out through their choices what their choices create in the world around them. That's the greatest way to empower somebody, is to shut up and let them move in the world and discover what their choices create. And I was doing this with my younger son, but really both of them, and watching him make these choices that were harmful to other people and harmful to himself, and just very like diminishing, and I could kind of see his future just go down, 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 down. And this happens a lot. I mean, there's a lot of kids out there, and particularly adolescents right now, that are making these kinds of choices that, as an adult, you watch and you go, wow, that's going to create a really, really not fun future for this person, and I was handling all of this too, energetically and with my body, and, just like concerned about it and trying to be with it. But it took me actually choosing, because you can't change anybody, even your own child. You can't change anybody. And if you try, please give that up too, or whatever, do whatever you want, because I can't change you either. And I have no interest in that actually, but I can give you different awareness and information, and you can listen and you can decide what's true for you, which is the only thing I'm really interested in, is what's true for each one of us individually. That's what's going to create a different world, is if we get to that and we live from that. And that's the only thing I've really ever wanted for my kids, is that they know themselves, they adore themselves, and they know that they know. They know that they know. They don't have to, listen to all the propaganda and all the bullshit. If you have ever seen Social Dilemma, boy, is that an amazing foray into what occurs with, technology and social media, and how our brains get trained out of knowing what we know. And I actually had my kids watch that and was like, this is what's happening, to all of our brains, mine included, and, but the thing is it wasn't really, things weren't really changing. And I just was like, this has to be different. So I started choosing something very, very different for me. And it was like, you know what, no matter what, I am getting out of survival mode. And what my kids choose is up to them. Like, they are infinite beings, and I really have always seen them as infinite beings. I mean, as much as I can. I have my moments too, but it's like to see them as an infinite being who's been around for a long time, many lifetimes, and this is one lifetime, and parenting them as infinite beings, like not just this lifetime, but all the lifetimes, and stepping into that, which is a very different space, and going, you know what, for me as a being, I'm here. It's a really intense time on the planet, and yet, wow, the beauty. Like, if you look from this point of view, you see, sickness and death and control and treachery and tyranny and all these things. And if you look from this point of view, you can't see the whole view, but it's so beautiful. And it's like, we have to, in order to have a different world, we have to be choosing to look from a different point of view and not engage with the, struggle and trauma and drama, but actually go, I'm going to be something totally different. I'm going to create something totally different. I'm going to choose something totally different. And that takes a lot of courage, And if you get nothing out of this video, and I know people are popping on and off and all that, if you get nothing out of this, please know that you choosing for you and choosing something different takes an enormous amount of courage. And there may be nobody in your life that gets it. And this is kind of, in a way what I got to, but also there's a lot of people in my life that get it. And I'm so incredibly grateful for that. I have so many phenomenal people in my life, and just, I'm every day like in awe and gratitude and wonder, and just, wow, I have this like swath of people all across the entire globe that have my back, and that are participating in this movement of consciousness that's going to create something different in the world, and is as we speak. And that has been one of the greatest gifts that I've given myself. And I tried to give it to my kids, and they were sort of not interested, which is fine. But I also did give it to my kids because they grew up with a lot of this stuff, and it's in them. And I trust that it's in them, and I trust that they know there's a different possibility because they've seen it. They may not choose it. And that's what I had to get to is, okay, they may not choose this, and I don't need them to choose what I'm doing and what I'm choosing. I want them to choose them, but I really want them to choose them. And this like loving themselves and honoring themselves and having gratitude for themselves, and knowing that they know no matter what anybody tells them, knowing that they know, not from a mind perspective, but from like the big perspective of an infinite being here on this planet at this time, creating something different. And the only way I can, and the only way we can, is if we choose that for ourselves. And I've started to do that, and really have created, and it's very much in progress still. I mean, this is just the beginning. So by no means do I think I've gotten anything right here, because as soon as you think you've gotten something right, you stop the movement. You stop the forward progress. You stop the momentum of what could be, what you could be creating. And so I just made a demand, and started choosing really different things, and going, you know what, it doesn't work for me to live with people that are not kind to me. It doesn't work for me to, have a child that's basically, spiraling downhill very rapidly. That doesn't work for me. That's not my world that I'm choosing. And it doesn't work for me to diminish my life for it. It doesn't work for me to diminish my life for anybody, my family, my partner, my friends, my loved ones. I will not diminish me for anybody. And that's one of the greatest gifts that you can give to the world. And it's also one of the biggest lies that we're taught, is that you need to compromise. You need to come to the table. You need to, make yourself smaller so that you fit into the box. But look at where that has gotten us. Look at where we are right now. If there's any indication that what we've been doing isn't working, I mean, I don't think there's anybody in the world right now that thinks things are working, which again is the good news. So, but how do we change that? We change that right here. We change that by being something different right here, right now. You cannot change your kids. You cannot change your family. You cannot change your husband, your wife, your lover, you cannot change anybody. You can't change the government. I mean, yeah, vote, but I mean, we don't even really know how good that is at this point. But, do what you need to do. But the biggest change that you can create in the world, being you changing the world, is making the demand right here of, I will have something different. And if I have to actually lose everybody in my life, I'm willing to. I am willing to. And I got to a point this week where I was like, I'm willing to lose my child. I'm willing to have him go live with his dad. I'm willing to lose this because I will not participate in this anymore. I will not feed this insanity for myself and everybody anymore. No more. And when we make a choice like that, and it's not just one choice, you have to keep choosing it. And you have to keep, every day is like, living like this is an act of massive courage every single day. And it doesn't have to be a big traumatic, dramatic, neurological drain. It doesn't have to feel like you're always in the, thick of it. This is because what occurs is you get this strength, and and one of the things that's shown up for me this week is like the most unbelievable gratitude and vulnerability and awe of what my choices are creating. And we sent my beautiful son off to wilderness camp for wilderness therapy for 3 months. It could have been a really traumatic, dramatic thing. And it actually was just like, I had literally hundreds of people in my community, in my global community, contributing to him and to me and to us and to everybody involved. And there was this like odd, strange kind of silent smoothness with which it all occurred. A lot of families, that's not how this goes down. But I literally called upon, we have this WhatsApp group with like hundreds of people that all are willing to be magic, and I'm so grateful to call them my friends. And they were right there with me. I asked them, I said, hey guys, like I need some contributions. My son needs, like, everybody here, can you please contribute? And they did. And they were just with us, energetically present, like holding us and holding the situation. And there was this incredible peace for me that swept over everything. And I could have doubted it, and I could have been like, well, I don't really know. I'm not sure how this is going. I don't know. Like, I don't know how everybody else is doing, but I had to acknowledge the peace that I was present with. And that's what's shown up for me every single day. It's like this strength, this vulnerability, this incredible gratitude for me and what I'm willing to choose. And this peace and this space. And when I tap into my son, because I don't get to really be in contact with him. I get to write him a letter tomorrow, but I don't get to be in contact with him. I don't get to talk to him for probably a month. And he's out in the woods with some other really amazing boys doing some really cool stuff. And dealing with his shit too. Like he's going to be confronting himself. But sometimes, well, all the time, I would say kindness is actually, and I'm going to kind of loosely quote Dane here on this, and who's also one of the creators of Access Consciousness. Kindness is knowing what needs to be done and doing it. What needs to be delivered and delivering it. Even if it puts somebody right up against themselves. right up against the intensity of their life and what's not working. And he was, pretty pissed at me and his dad and kind of hating us and, all the things. But I had to know for me that what I was choosing was kindness. And it wasn't just kindness to him. It wasn't like, well, this is for your own good. Not that kind of thing, because that's just being an asshole. It's actually kindness to me first, kindness to him, kindness to his future, and kindness to the future of the world. Because when we be us and we step up and we do what we do and we know what we know and we choose what we know we can choose, that we've been really not willing to choose, afraid to choose, not able to choose, when we choose those things that are so different, so out of the box, we create these massive ripples in the world. And other people either step up or they don't. It doesn't matter. The indication of you being you and changing the world is not going to show up for you in how other people respond. It's going to show up in how you begin to see your life. And then what occurs is you begin to see other people in a different way. You begin to see your child or your lover or your whatever as an infinite being. You begin to see them as somebody who's, you begin to see the energy basically rather than the story. You get out of the story. You get out of what they're telling themselves about you. And because if I was in his head, because I can be in his head, I'm very, very aware, I'm very psychic. I can be in his head. I can be in anybody's head if I want to be. If I was, I would be listening to the thoughts that he's having rather than the experience that he's having as a being and the future that's being created. And I won't go there. I'm not interested in the thoughts that anybody is having, including myself. I have no interest in that, because our thoughts are the lies that we tell ourselves and we tell each other, and then we believe that. And this whole world and this whole crazy frickin' reality has been created around people's erroneous and insane thoughts. All of mine included and all of ours included. I'm not excluding myself from that. But what I have gotten to over the past basically 25 years of doing my work every single day in a pretty hardcore way is, in a wonderful way, really, really, I wouldn't change anything. I'm so grateful for my life. I'm so grateful for my life. I'm so grateful for me. But what I've gotten to is that what I think is absolutely irrelevant, I ignore it. I'm not interested in it. What other people think is irrelevant. I'm not interested in it. What I know is a future that we can have that has no words to it and is energetic and is only perceivable. It's not definable. I can't put it into words, but I trust that knowing. That's what I'm interested in for me and for everybody else. And that's the field that I play on as much as I possibly can. And do I have my moments? Absolutely. Do I have my thoughts and my feelings and my emotions and all this stuff? Absolutely. Do I stay there? No. I don't allow myself to stay there, because what I would like to do is create a completely different future. And now creating a completely different future is the only thing that's going to change that. The only thing that's going to create a completely different future, not actually change what is by fixing it. It's way too far gone to fix. This world is way too far gone to fix. Let's let it die. It's dying. Let's let it die. The death that it's dying, that is very clear to all of us, if you're willing to see, that is dying. Let's go somewhere else. Now, where do we go? What do we do? How do we show up? What do we create? What do we choose? What do we be? That's only for you to know. You are the only person that can know what is true for you, and everybody in your life will fight you on it. Everybody will fight you on it. And, well, I'm not going to actually, I take that back, because I have a lot of people. I actually have more people in my life that don't fight me on it, that support me in it, that cheer me on, that are like, hell yes, girl, you fucking go. You know. And that's what I've chosen to surround myself with. And I do also have people in my life that fight me on it. And the beauty is that as I commit more and more to what I know, the world that I know, the future that I know, what I know is possible and available, as I commit more to that, The fighting that other people do in my life is dissolving. Because I am not choosing the fight anymore. We cannot fight this world to change it. And this is where the polarization of good, bad, right, wrong, right, left, Democrat, Republican, vaxxer, anti-vaxxer, all the fucking bullshit. We've got to get out of that. We've got to step out of that. There's so much hatred in the world right now. There's so much hatred in the world. Look at where we are. Look at where we've ended up. And if you're on either side of that fence, you're perpetuating it. You're feeding it. If you're fighting, you're feeding it. Even if you think you're fighting for good, you're feeding it. We have to do something different. We have to choose something different. We have to be something different. It's time. And you are the only one who can choose. You are the only one who can choose what you know. And the world and the earth. And to me, this is really about the earth at this point, because we are destroying this planet to a degree where we won't even be able to be here anymore. The world and the earth require this of us. And the beauty of it all is that when you step into those spaces and you choose the courageous choices that you haven't been willing to choose before, and you do the things that you haven't been willing to do before, and you choose, your life gets greater. You get happier. You get more relaxed. The trauma leaves your world. Your relationships change. You have better sex. You make more money. Your business grows. You get to spend more time with the beauty of the world and the earth. The constructs of this reality melt away. And your life becomes phenomenal. And if you think that that's not important, I would invite you to look at that. Because the world is not going to get greater by all of us running around being miserable. And I've recently stepped out of that in a way that I never had before. I was miserable in a lot of ways and I didn't know it. I thought I was happy. And I was a lot happier than a lot of people, but not what I knew. And I stepped out of it. And I continue to. And am I perfect? Have I reached a pinnacle? Fuck no. I have no interest in perfection or pinnacleism or arrival at a destination. I have no interest in that. Because that's when you conclude that you've gotten it right and you go right back into the polarity of everything instead of, wow, that was cool. What else? What else is possible? So thank you so much for being here, for listening, for receiving. This to me, I'm like, this all has to change. And I'm not going to try to fix it. And what I mean by this all, the world, the hatred, the polarization, the tyranny, the control, the destruction of bodies, the mistrust of our bodies, the destruction of the earth, the mistrust of the earth, the disconnection from the earth, the addiction to technology, the having our brains wired by social media, what's happening in my family, what's happening in my life, what's happening in my body, all of it. And the only way that I know that I can do that is by choosing, for me, by getting intimate with me, by getting vulnerable with me, by having gratitude for me, by trusting me, by treating myself with regard, honoring me, having allowance of me, getting out of judgment of me. What would the world be like if we had 8 billion people walking around, trusting themselves, being happy with themselves, being content with themselves, having thriving lives? It would all of those lives would look very different. And what if none of them were right and none of them were wrong? But if everybody was truly thriving, their bodies, we wouldn't have a pandemic. We wouldn't worry about it. Because when your body is in your life and you are that happy and alive and thriving, illness is not a thing. It's a different world. I haven't been sick in decades. And since I started Access Consciousness, so I guess a decade, I haven't been sick because of the tools that I use and the energy that I, play with my body and all that. And that's a story for another time. I'm writing a book about that. Just thank you for being here. If you've watched all of this or some of it or whatever, thank you. I really invite you to share this. I have no agenda here other than let's create a totally different world. So please share this. This will be on YouTube eventually as well. Share it with your peeps, your networks, like it, comment, so it bumps in the algorithm and all that kind of stuff that we do to make things more visible. And have conversations with people about this, have conversations. Check out accessconsciousness.com. Check out heathernichols.com. That's my website. Just for content and conversations and possibilities and what else we could be doing and being that's really different. If we don't choose this, the world will not. We are actually the revolutionaries. If you're listening and you're interested in this conversation is lighting up your world, you are a revolutionary for a different reality. And we don't have to fight, guys. We don't have to fight. We just have to be and be happy and choose what really, really works for us. Let's do it. Let's be it. Let's go. Thank you so much for you. You have no idea what a gift you are to the world. You being open and listening to this conversation is such a gift to the world. Please receive that, acknowledge it, be it. Do something fun today and different and nurturing for you and your body. And just thank you.